And the award for Mother of the Year goes to. In tonight's review, I'm talking about Goodnight Mommy, which is a German film with English subtitles, and the DVD does not feature an English dub, so if you don't know German and you don't like reading subtitles, then you might not care to watch this movie. This movie follows two little boys whose mother has been injured in some sort of accident. She ends up going to the hospital for a few weeks before she finally comes back home with bandages covering her face. However, along the way, these two little boys discover certain clues which tell them that this woman might actually be an imposter. From the get go, I respected this movie for how ambiguous it was. I mean, in my synopsis, the reason I merely mentioned that the mother was in some kind of accident is because I don't know what kind of accident she was in, whether it was an auto accident or if she was inside some kind of collapsing structure. It's also strongly suggested that one of the two brothers was directly involved in this and that he may have actually caused it to happen. I don't know what he did. Again, I don't know what kind of accident occurred. And, that makes sense because obviously the characters in the movie know what happened, so they don't need to sit there and explain to each other what happened. Basically, that would be like if I went up to my best friend and said, "Hello, my best friend Nick, who I have known for 6 years and who is now married to one of my high school friends. How are you?" I also really liked how much this movie utilized silence to build up tension and atmosphere throughout. There are a couple of scarce moments where you can hear music playing, but it's barely perceptible and it's very subtle. And this may come as a big shock to you guys, but Goodnight Mommy is in the horror genre, and throughout its entire running time, there are zero jump scares. However, this movie does feature some pretty graphic moments of violence in it during the final act. There are some moments that are pretty painful to watch, and I've listened to a couple of reviewers who said that they didn't really care for the direction this movie went towards the end, but personally I was on board with it, mainly because I felt like the last 30 minutes of Goodnight Mommy featured some of its most suspenseful moments. And again, I mentioned that some of the violence was painful to watch, which shows that I actually gave a shit about what was happening. And I've already said this in the past, but I'll go ahead and acknowledge it again. I know that just because a movie is disturbing and effective in some parts, it doesn't necessarily make it good, but given all that I've watched at this point, I think it's fairly safe to say that I am desensitized. So, honestly, I think it's a pretty high compliment that a horror film with violence in it can actually make me flinch. Now, I find the concept of a mother or really any parental figure, anyone who's close to you for that matter, being replaced by a stranger to be pretty deeply unsettling, but honestly, throughout most of the running time of this movie, there were moments where I felt creeped out. There were portions of it where I felt disturbed by what was going on, but as it unfolded, I felt like overall it was just a very interesting and intriguing movie to watch. And then the ending happened, and that was where it really struck me. I found the ending of this movie to be deeply terrifying. It stuck with me throughout the night, and it kind of had the same effect on me as the ending to The Hateful Eight, where now that I know what's going to happen, I'd like to go back and rewatch this movie with that knowledge in mind, and in fact, I think it'll make it a much more disturbing experience. Overall, I thought that Goodnight Mommy was a very effective psychological thriller. Again, I know that some people have their issues with the final act and everything, but I was okay with it, and I love the ending for how much it scared me. So I would say if you're interested in this film, then it comes highly recommended. Anyway, that's all I've got to say about Goodnight Mommy. I hope y'all have a good one.